He protected Jimmy Butler for over a decade, but when he was quietly fired, no one could predict what Butler would do next. Most people just called him Butler's guy, or waved him on when they saw him. He was a broad-shouldered, calm-faced man in a dark suit. He seemed like the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice because he didn't have to. He always asked, "Everything okay?" His eyes never leaving the crowd. Butler would nod slightly, and that was enough. There were no small talk or exaggerated gestures, just 15 years of trust summed up in a brief greeting. David Lewis had been there long before Butler's 3 NBA championships, back when Butler was an uncertain prospect with fragile ankles and a shooting style considered too risky for professional basketball. He was there when Butler turned Oakland into the Oracle, and he stayed when the team moved to San Francisco. Marcus was there for all the important moments, always close, but never in the way. He was never flashy, just a quiet wall between Jimmy and anything that could go wrong. And yes, sometimes things did go wrong. There was that night in New York when a drunken fan escaped from the security line with something hidden under his coat. One step closer, and Marcus was already there. Calm, quick, precise. "Not today," he said, hand on the fan's shoulder. "Go home." And the fan went. He was present in the difficult moments, too. The nights when Butler didn't say much, the tours where he barely slept, the silence that came with injuries and recoveries. Sometimes they would sit outside the hotel, just the two of them, nothing but the sound of traffic and the cold air. "Do you think this ever lessens?" Butler asked once, eyes fixed on the horizon. "I think you learn to move differently," Marcus replied. "Not slower, but smarter." He didn't say much more after that. He never did. But then one day, he was gone. No fight, no press release, simply no longer there. The black SUV arrived without him. The backstage fell silent for the first time in 15 years. Jimmy looked over his shoulder, and nobody was there. It was just business, they said. But to Marcus, it felt like the end of something much deeper. And what happened next would prove exactly how much Jimmy Butler really noticed the man who had always stood behind him. The call came on a Wednesday. No drama, no long speeches, just a change in the security protocol, a restructuring, a new company taking over. That's how they explained it. Marcus didn't argue. He just said, "Understood," and hung up the phone. Then he sat for a moment, motionless, as if his body hadn't yet processed the words. In the guest house where he had stayed for years, the one hidden behind Butler's property in Coral Gables, Florida. Everything was still where he had left it. His worn boots by the door, his coffee mug with the chipped rim, the faded cap that Sasha, Butler's daughter, had given him when she was just a little girl. It said, "World's Best Security," in crooked pink letters. He never wore it, but he kept it. Marcus packed his things slowly, not because he was bitter, just tired. 15 years does that to a man. No one said goodbye. No cameras. No farewell. He closed his suitcase and turned off the lights. Before leaving, he stopped in the hallway where there was a framed photo. A picture of him and Butler backstage, both younger, laughing at something no one could remember. He touched the edge of the frame and let out a silent sigh. "Stay safe out there, man," he whispered. Outside, the morning air nipped at his face. The driver who picked him up didn't ask questions, just nodded when he got in. As they drove away, the house grew smaller in the rearview mirror, just bricks and windows to most people. But to him, it had been a second home, a place where he had waited during rehearsals, birthdays, crises, all of it. The car moved forward. He didn't know where life would take him next, but neither did Jimmy Butler, because what Jimmy was about to do, nobody saw coming. Not even the man who had been by his side for 15 years. The first weeks were strange. Marcus would wake up before dawn, still expecting the usual call. "We leave in 20, or he wants extra coverage tonight." But the phone remained quiet, always quiet. He tried to keep busy. Long walks through the neighborhood in Oakland, where he ended up renting a small apartment. Hands in pockets, hood up. Sometimes he would stop at the local gym, nod to the regulars, hit the punching bag for a few rounds, and leave before anyone got too curious. Most people didn't recognize him out of context. He wasn't famous. He was just a tall, middle-aged guy with a quiet look and a tired calmness. But now and then, someone would stop him. "Hey, weren't you?" He would nod, smile. "Yes, I was." They never pressed. Something in his tone made them let it go. He wasn't angry, and that surprised him. He felt no resentment, not towards Butler, not towards the team, not even towards the new guys who replaced him. He felt empty, as if he had left behind something he couldn't carry with him. One night he sat on his small balcony with a cup of lukewarm coffee, staring at nothing in particular. His sister had called earlier, asking if he was okay. "Yes," he said, "just adjusting." She paused. "Do you miss him?" He didn't answer right away. "I miss the job," he said softly. "I miss being needed." He didn't say what else he missed. The discreet fist bumps before games. The way Jimmy would look for him in crowded rooms, never saying anything, but always checking if he was there. Now he wasn't, and Butler hadn't called. Not once. He told himself it didn't matter, that it was part of the job, that he had always been the ghost in the background, not the friend in the room. But when he closed his eyes that night, he saw the hallway again, the picture frame, the old cap with pink letters. He didn't know yet, but across the bay, Jimmy Butler had just picked up a pen, and for the first time in years, thug words weren't for fan autographs. They were for him. The envelope was simple. No return address, just his name written in a familiar, tight handwriting. He found it on his porch one morning, half hidden under the welcome mat, as if whoever delivered it didn't want to be seen. For a second, he thought it was a mistake, a bill, a neighbor's mail, but when he picked it up, he knew. He sat down slowly, knees cracking after years of standing guard, and turned the envelope in his hands, as if it might disappear if he moved too quickly. Then he opened it. Inside, no check, no contract, no instructions, just a folded piece of paper and a note that seemed to have taken days to write. "I should have said something before, but I didn't know how to thank someone who spent half their life keeping me alive without ever asking for credit. You saw me at my worst and stayed. I don't know many people like that. Actually, I don't know anyone like that. This isn't the end. It's just the next chapter for both of us. I hope you'll let me do something for you now." He didn't realize how tightly he was holding the page until a tear hit the corner of the letter and bled some of the ink. He exhaled. For 15 years, he had been behind the man. Now the man had stepped forward for him. Later that day, a second envelope arrived, this one from a bank. Inside were the documents for a full scholarship for his 17-year-old son, Marcus Jr., who dreamed of studying physical education at University of Miami. The scholarship covered absolutely everything: tuition, accommodation, books, and even included a stipend for personal expenses. Most surprising, it came with a personal letter of recommendation from Jimmy Butler and the guarantee of an internship in the Heat Youth Development Program during the summers. He looked at the paperwork for a long time, then picked up his phone. For the first time in months, he sent a message. "Thank you. That's all I ever needed to hear." The reply came almost instantly. "If you need me, I'm still here. Always." 2 months later, Marcus managed to rent a small space in Liberty City. It wasn't much to look at. Faded red bricks, rusty signage, a cracked sidewalk leading to the entrance. But to him, it felt like hope. It felt like purpose. The keys jingled in his palm as he entered for the first time. The place smelled of dust and old dreams, but that didn't bother him. He had seen worse, guarded worse. He took a slow turn around the empty space. Scratched floors, broken mirrors, a dented locker with someone's initials scratched into it. He stood in the center of the room and whispered to himself, "Let's build something real." And he built. In the weeks that followed, he put everything into it. Painted the walls, brought in second-hand equipment, put up posters of Butler and LeBron, not for display, but because they were the players who took hits and kept moving forward. The word spread quickly, not because of press or money, but because of him. The young kids started showing up, some quiet, some angry, some just looking for a reason not to go home yet. He didn't talk much, just handed out basketball gloves and showed them how to stand. "Feet shoulder width apart," he would say. "Chin up, hands ready." Always hands ready. It wasn't about the game. Not really. It was about showing them they could take a hit and stay standing. One night, As he was closing up, he heard a voice behind him. "The place looks good." He turned around, and there was Jimmy Butler, hood up. No entourage, just him. Marcus blinked. "Didn't expect to see you here." Butler shrugged. "Didn't expect you'd actually open it." They both smiled. No tension, just two men who had been through too much to waste time with awkwardness. "You did this," he told Jimmy, gesturing around the gym. "No," Butler said, looking at the court. "You did." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Butler took something from his pocket, a small plaque. He handed it over. It read, "To the man who always had my back, now helping others find their way." He didn't say anything, just nodded, and for the first time in a long time, felt he was exactly where he needed to be. He never went back to security work, not because he couldn't, but because he didn't need to. The gym was full most days. Now, young people who used to hang on corners were learning techniques, discipline, self-respect. Some didn't even want to play. They just liked that someone was finally in their corner. He kept his old routines. Early mornings, coffee the way he liked it, 2 sugars, 1 cream. Some habits don't change even after the world shifts beneath you. Every now and then his phone would ping with a short message. "See the game last night? New season starting. Need tickets? Sasha asked about you." And his son was thriving at Stanford thanks to Butler's scholarship. Marcus Jr. was already talking about graduating and maybe coming back to help at his dad's gym. They never talked much about the past. No reminiscing about old tours. No mention of the night in Denver when things almost went off the rails. Or the time he had to carry Butler out of a hotel to avoid a tabloid ambush. But the bond was still there. Unspoken, but solid. Once a year, without fail, he would receive a small package, inside always the same thing. A new letter from Jimmy, with news about an anonymous donation made to the gym. No note, no explanation, just a nod from one man to another. "I haven't forgotten." One day a kid at the gym asked him, "Is it true you used to protect Jimmy Butler?" He paused, wiped his hands on a towel, and thought about it. "I didn't protect a basketball player," he finally said. "I protected a human being. Big difference." The kid nodded, not fully understanding, but sensing something deep in the answer. And that was enough. Sometimes he would see Butler on TV accepting awards, playing live, cameras flashing, crowd roaring. He would smile quietly, knowing what the cameras couldn't see, how far they had both come. He wasn't behind Jimmy Butler anymore. Didn't need to be, because what they built wasn't just about proximity or paychecks. It was about trust, years of it, and the kind of loyalty that doesn't end just because the job does. They weren't colleagues. They were family, and family never truly abandons you. If someone had stood by you for 15 years, what would you do to thank them? If this story touched you, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because we're just getting started.